and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I'm going to continue from where I left off in the last segment and show you some more instruments, and I want to get into how they're made. You know, every so often I get someone asking me the question, what is the simplest instrument to play? And what's the easiest instrument to learn? And of course, I don't know too much about the brass. I do know something about brass, but not enough that I would be teaching it. And I have done a little keyboard, but my focus is usually on woodwind. So I usually ask him the question and say, well, it depends upon how well you want to play. Technically, I think probably the recorder would be a good place to start. And it's also a good place to finish because you have recorder artists that do recorders for a living. They play for a living, they play classical music. I write and arrange for recorders. I do classical recorders and do it professionally. You know, I do Handel's Messiah on a recorder, a simple recorder, a C melody recorder, which is also called a Descant. It's one of these here, like I have here, that I use frequently. And but any instrument, if you want to play it well, is going to have its challenges. But the recorder is simply made, and it's easy to play. And one thing I really love about these simple instruments, you don't have to worry about reeds, cork, screws, rods, all of the things that make instruments complicated. Now, I do deal with all of those things in the other instruments that I have. But these simple instruments, you know, they basically, you finger them, you blow in. There's a certain way that you do it. You do have fingering patterns to learn, but they play well, they play in pitch. You can play lots of music. They play in different keys. Now, they will have some limitations just simply because they don't have all those rods and cork and all of the keys, so you can't do as much with them as you can, say, with the saxophone or the flutes or the oboes or the bassoons, you know, but they still play a lot of music, and we're going to get into that. I want to show you a few more, then I want to get into how they're built, because they are simply built. So I'm going to show you, first of all, this is a little song flute, and the song flutes are really quite nice. They're small. They do have a thumb hole in the back. Of course, they're all black, so you're not going to probably be able to see much, but I've got my finger on the tone hole in the back. They do have a recorder Fipple mouthpiece. It's very much like a recorder's mouthpiece. They do have the labium, and they do have a place to put your right thumb. And the keys are raised. They're different shapes in different locations. If I can hold it up here, you might be able to see that, to accommodate your fingers. 3 on top, and your thumb in the back on the thumb hole, and then 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, there is a story behind this. I was riding along with my brother and his wife and kids, and they had this in the car, so they could play with it, you know, as they were driving along, but they kept it in all kinds of weather. If it was freezing in the winter or hot in the summer, there it was. And when we were riding, one of them picked it up and said, "Here, Auntie Pat, you can have this one. It doesn't play." And I thought, why would it? It hadn't been very well treated. But I got it to play step by step by step. And it plays on pitch, has a nice tone, and it plays just as much well as if it were new. It took me a while to get to it. I had to play it and warm it up and just let it squeak, and then squeaks turned into tones, and tones turned into more tones. It's a very nice instrument. Now, something that's similar to it is going to be the tonette. Tonette also has a hole in the back and a place for you to put your fingers, but it doesn't have quite the intensity of tone as the song flute does. Nonetheless, the octave is accurate. You know, it's a full octave instrument, so you might be able to get 1 or 2 more notes. I guess that's about it. 8 notes, that's about its limit. But it does play fairly well. It has a little bell here, anything that kind of splays out. The saxophones do it, the clarinets do it, the recorders do it some, and that's called a bell. Anything that splays out like that is going to be a bell. Now, the flutophone has a little bell, and I like the flutophones. They come in white with red or black with white, and they play very, very well. They're in pitch, and they have an interesting way of lining up. You can see the tone holes because it's white, so it's easy to see. And there's a little extension, so you know that your left hand is going on top, and the extension is on the right. You may not be able to, I'm calling it an extension. They actually draw the key out a little, so you know that you are supposed to keep your right hand on the bottom and left hand on top. I remember there was a church that I was going to where I did solos every week, and they expected me to, and I loved doing it. And I developed severe heart trouble. I ended up by having to have open heart surgery. But one of the last things I was able to play was a flutophone. I could play melodies on it. I could play harmonies on it. It's in pitch, it's in the key of C, and it has a nice tone. But of course, as my heart was failing, I had less and less air to work with, and so it ended up that I wouldn't be able to play a saxophone. It required much too much air, but I was able to play the flutophone. Fortunately for me, the surgery was successful, but I was quite a while playing some of these little instruments because I didn't have the air to play the others. Now, this is interesting. It's an Israeli instrument. This is a recorder, and it's made out of cedar wood, and it's got a plastic head joint, a black plastic head joint. The foot joint and the body are all joined as one, made out of cedar. I used to be able to smell the cedar, but I can't do it anymore because it's just the smell's gone out of it. And it's not a Baroque, it's a regular one. You can see, well, you can't see it there, but you can see where it was carved, and you can see little slices of the knife in it. It's a very nice instrument. It's got a little softer tone. It's a gill. I have another Israeli instrument that's also a gill. They're very nice indeed. Now, some of the things that I want to get into is the way that these instruments are made. This is an Asian instrument. I don't want to pull it apart, but it does play, and it plays well. And the instruments, and I'm just going to point up here for a minute on this chart. The way that they're basically made in 3 parts. You have your head joint from here to here. You have your body from here to here, and this is your foot joint. All of the what it's made out of to cause you to get tones is going to be in the head joint. Now, what I wanted to do is show you this, because this is an Asian instrument, and you can see all of the joints are separated by blue pieces of plastic, including on the bottom. The tone hole doesn't have any plastic around it, but this Asian instrument, this is the head joint, and this is the body. And from here, from this blue down, is the foot joint. And if I were to pick up this is a Japanese instrument, and it's very clear, it's a dark-colored instrument, it's plastic. But from here to here is the head joint. You can pull that off. I'm not going to now, but you can. And this is, from here to here is the body of the instrument, and from here down is the foot joint. And one thing I like to use this instrument for is that the thumb hole, which is responsible for playing octaves a lot of the time, is all encased in plastic. So it's real easy to see, and you would put your left thumb on it for most of the notes, and then your left hand for the first 3. When I was teaching kids in the school, I had them learn 2 words, bag and fed. This is B, A, G, and then the bottom F, E, D, bag fed. And then on top of that, you won't be able to see it on this one, are two other keys that are like two little holes. I'll show them to you on this Asian instrument. You should be able to see them pretty well. F, E, D. Now this D has two holes. And then the C has also got two holes. So it's B, A, G, F, E, D with the two holes, you cover both of them, and that C where you cover both of them, the two holes. Why are those holes there? This is single, 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 single. This is double hole, and this is double holes. They help you to play sharps and flats. That's why they're there. But not all instruments have them. And if I were to show you one of my German instruments, and it doesn't matter, you can still play those notes even if they're not there. So you don't have to worry about missing notes. Whoops, this is also a German instrument, but I have it here for another reason as well. This has the two double holes. This has the two double holes. But there are some of them that don't have them. Now, some have only one. I was trying to find one that doesn't have it, but most of mine do. I brought this in because this instrument doesn't play well. It's a German instrument, and I got it, somebody picked it up for me at a perpetual yard sale. They had a yard sale every day. They had interesting things, and she saw this and asked if I would like to have it, and of course, yes, I would like to have it, and I reimbursed her. And the thing, it doesn't play well, and the reason it doesn't play well is that the top half is from one instrument, German instrument, and the bottom, it doesn't have a foot joint. They're all jointed as one. The bottom is apart from another instrument. Somebody, probably some kids, took the top of one instrument and joined it with the bottom of another instrument and put them together as one. But it doesn't fit that well. I have played it, but you have to remember, if you're dealing with instruments, don't join parts together that are from different instruments. It doesn't work well. It doesn't work well at all. And so it doesn't play very well. But I like it very much, and I use it more or less as a teaching tool. Now, I'm still on the hunt here for, and I didn't have, take a look at this Israeli instrument. That has two sets. I was looking for an instrument that doesn't have two sets of holes in the bottom. I wanted to show you this. There's a reason for it. This is a Renaissance instrument. Now, they do have, the way that they arrange the mouthpieces, they have a little block in the inside, and the reason I'm going to show you this is I can get the top off from it. It's styled a little bit differently than regular recorders. You have a head joint, and you have the mouthpiece, and everything else is just one unit. That's not too unusual in a wooden instrument. A lot of times the foot joint and the regular body are welded as one. But if I take this, and I'm carefully doing this, this is Fipple. This is a Fipple mouthpiece. Now, what does a Fipple mouthpiece do? It actually acts as the mouthpiece for the instrument. This is just a cover for the Fipple. This is the Fipple. When you blow into the instrument, you blow into that Fipple. And the instruments all have them. The only reason I can show this to you is that for some reason it got unglued over the years, and I can pull it off. And the air goes in there, and then the labium is right here. And even though you can't see it, there would be in the inside a circular kind of disc so that you can't get down. You can only get, if I were to take a conductor's baton, and I've done it before, you can't get through. The air has to be directed. So I can pull the top off from this Renaissance instrument and align it. Supposedly, I mean, I can still play it, but I wouldn't because it could come off at any time, and I don't want that to happen, but I wanted you to see it. Now, if we take a look at, this is a Skaggs. I have a couple of them here. I like them, and one of the things I like about them is they do play well, and it's translucent. You can see my hand all the way through here. You can see through it, but if you look here, you can see that there is this block. I keep talking about this block. It's right here. And you can see it through the green kind of plastic, and it's white, and it's this shape, and becomes a part of the mouthpiece. The block becomes a part of the mouthpiece. If I hold the instrument like this, you can see the white. That's the block. And when I first got it, I wondered if there was something wrong, because I could see it down here as well. From here, down, if you follow my finger down here, across, up, and swooping up. That's all the block. The fipple is going to be on top where you blow it, and this is the shape of it. And they all have something that does this. And now the other one I have, that's also a Skaggs, you can see a tiny bit of that block peeking through. It looks like there's a white piece of plastic that's stuck in there. Well, that is part of the block. It's where it's supposed to be. And if you were to look up, if you could do that, I don't think you can, but if you can, you can see that sticks down. So you can see the shape of it. That's the block. Now, other instruments, it's there, but you don't see it very well. So therefore, it's not so noticeable. Even if you have an instrument, let's say you're talking about a flutophone here, this is going to act like the block, and it goes down, and then it's going to have a circular disc in it, so you can only, if you were to poke it, you could only get up so far. It's like a circle, and what I'm going to do now, I think, is I have this drawn out, so that I can show it to you maybe better. So this is the block right here. You blow in here, that's called the windway, that's the fipple, that's the windway, and it goes down here and the air goes out, this labium. And then, of course, some of it also goes down the instrument so you can actually play. I sketched that out so it looks like this. And so the block becomes a part of the mouthpiece. But if I were to take an instrument apart and put a conductor's baton up, you could get up so far and you wouldn't be able to get up any further. And what there is a little slit for air to go from the labium down through the rest of the instrument. They're very, very simply made. Now, if I take a look at this one here, this is an instrument. This is obviously the mouthpiece area. This is the head joint. This is the foot joint. And you can see it's all clear. There's nothing in there. It's just like a plain tube. It's called a windway. It's just a plain tube. But if I were to take something and move it up, there would be a circular block right here that would be a part. I can see a little bit of it, but it's not going to be clear enough for you to see on television. And I would not be able to push up any further than that. So you can see how simply made they are. I brought in a clear one. Since everything is the same clear plastic, you can't tell much of anything because it all looks alike. But if you were to look at it, you could see there's a little circle down here, there's a little blockage, you play it in here. Now this is not well put together, it's a very cheap one and it could fall apart on me, which is why I'm not going to try to pull it apart. But you can only get so far. Air goes in fipple mouthpiece, it hits the labium, parts of the air goes out the labium, the rest goes down the instrument, and the longer the tube, the deeper the tone. And if you could see it, I'm not sure how much you can see if I hold it in this direction. I can see it from here, part of the block. But it's clear plastic. Everything is clear plastic. But I bring it in because it shows you how simply these instruments are made. So it's interesting to find out this, because if you know how your instrument is made, you know that it's practically indestructible unless you do something to it or you leave it someplace where it shouldn't be left. There's nothing there that can go wrong. There really isn't anything there that can go wrong. When we talk about the recorders, and I only have, the littlest one I have is right here. This is a Sopranino. This is a very small recorder. It plays like any other recorder. It plays beautifully. It's very high-pitched because it's very small. I don't play it usually because the pitch is so high. However, the smaller the tube, the higher the pitch. And this is just a simpler, but it plays just like any other recorder. Tone hole in the back, and you can see there's a little block in there because it's not the same color as the rest of the instrument. And when you take a look at that, if I hold it up, you can see, I can't see it too clearly from here, but this area here that's part of the block is a little bit darker colored than the rest of it. So you know it's there. And there is a little B, and you're not going to be able to see this, but a little B on top of the thumb hole in the back, that stands for Baroque. So the fingering pattern of this instrument, and most of the instruments that are played, by the way, are also Baroques, it's a little bit different than an instrument that doesn't have that B. If you have an instrument that doesn't have that B, it looks and acts exactly like any other recorder, but the fingering pattern is not quite as complicated. There's nothing really complicated about a recorder, and you can play beautiful music with it. But if you have a B, that stands for Baroque, and so there are a couple of notes that you would play differently. So instead of playing an F like this, I'd add another key right there. And then for the B flat, instead of playing B, if I want a B flat like that, I'd add a couple of fingers. It's not much of a difference, but enough so that the instrument comes a little bit better in tune. So I just want to show you that. I don't have too much time left. Let's see, what am I missing? I guess you've seen about all of the ones that I brought in. They all work simply, they all finger simply, and they are a lot of fun to play. And if you learn how to play on them, then you can act as a springboard for other woodwind instruments, such as the saxophones, the clarinets, the oboes, bassoons, flutes, and piccolos, all of which I have. I don't have an oboe and I don't have a bassoon, but the rest of them I have. So, but you can play a lot of music on instruments like these, and as I said, they're a lot of fun. They come in all kinds of colors, they play well, and to get a child started on them, they generally like to play and make noise anyway. Why not give them an instrument? It's not going to be perfect, but at the same time, it may spring for them, act as a springboard for wanting to play instruments. So I'm going to close it here. I'm about out of time, and we'll continue with this next time. Please join me then.